July is coming up again, and with the lunar calendar, it's the 7th month. There are all sorts of competitions, all sorts of new and not so new cheeksy Valentine's Day events during the lunar 7th month. If July is considered a ghost month, such a terrible month, yet it tells you to go fall in love. Are you supposed to marry a ghost bride? First of all, you can't move house or start construction during the 7th month of the lunar calendar. What else? You can't get married in July. Although I can't say for sure that you absolutely can't get married in July. Does that mean you definitely shouldn't celebrate cheeksy Valentine's Day? Hello everyone, I'm teacher Geng. My channel is about to reach 300,000 subscribers. I'm also the founder of the International Index Society. Our society has worked hard to become the largest metaphysics education institution in the Chinese community. And every year, many students start their own businesses and participate in competitions. I'm very dedicated to promoting the teaching of metaphysics. The 7th lunar month is coming up again in July. This year is special because there's a leap 6th month, so it feels like the 7th month is pushed back a little bit. The actual 7th month will finish around this year. This sharp September. But every time the 7th lunar month comes around, everyone gets very nervous. So many taboos, so many misfortunes. But regardless, there are many folk culture experts, including on my own channel and in my articles, where I keep reminding everyone, if you understand the origins of the 7th lunar month, you'll realize it's actually a month of gratitude. Why is that? When is the Qixi festival, the Chinese Valentine's Day? It's in the 7th lunar month. If the 7th lunar month were really such a terrible ghost month, then why would it tell you to fall in love? Are you supposed to marry a ghost bride? Of course not. So, the origin of the 7th lunar month, actually before the concept of ghost month even existed, back in the earliest days of agrarian societies, think about it. What do people do in the 7th month? The 7th month is exactly the time for harvest. Oh, it's exactly the harvest time. If we look a bit further ahead, autumn is about to begin, and that's when we do the autumn harvest and store things for winter. So before the autumn harvest, shouldn't we start organizing the crops we've grown, and for the livestock, get ready to slaughter those that need to be slaughtered and start curing or preserving the meat as needed? So in fact, this time in the month of July is actually a period of abundance for agrarian societies in the past. It's a time of harvest, a season when crops are gathered. When you have a good harvest, you make some money, or in other words, you gain important resources. Whether it's in farming or animal husbandry, it's only after you see some results that you start thinking about getting married, right? That's also why the Qixi festival, or Chinese Valentine's Day, falls in July, because that's when everyone has their harvest. After the harvest, it's time to celebrate. Of course, you need to celebrate during festivals, and in the process of celebrating, it's only natural that people start drinking. After drinking, people can get a little wild, not just happy, but you might start thinking, hey, I had a good harvest this year, I'm still young, maybe it's time to start considering marriage. Maybe I can even find a partner. This is also why the story of the cowherd and the weaver girls meeting happens in the 7th month. As we mentioned, whether it's fattening up the cattle or harvesting crops, and on the other side, those raising silkworms and weaving cloth are also getting ready, harvesting silk from the cocoons and weaving the fabric. So at this time, it's a great opportunity. If we have time, maybe we can record another episode about the origins of the Qixi festival. We can go into even more detail about it later, but in any case, no matter how you look at it, the 7th month should actually be a really good time. So why has it now become known as the ghost month? There are two major key points here. Think about it. When we give thanks to heaven and earth, shouldn't we also take the opportunity to thank our ancestors at home for helping us, just like people did in ancient times? If you look at the character for sacrifice, a sai, you'll notice that the part on the side is often said to be the character xu, but originally in ancient pictographs, the side of the character si is actually a ji. What is that ji? It's a person kneeling in worship. That sai, as we see it now, is generally understood to mean deity or divine being. The god of life is also represented by that shi on the side. But the earliest, most original meaning of that god did not refer to the deities of heaven and earth, nor did it mean things like what we now know as God, Allah, or the three pure ones of Taoism. Who does it refer to in the West? Who is it actually referring to? It actually refers to ancestors. It actually refers to ancestors. For ancient people, those who directly affected their lives the most were, in fact, their ancestors. And who are the ancestors? They are, well, the people who have passed away, right? So in its most original sense, it actually refers to deceased ancestors. So who did they worship? They worshiped their ancestors. For example, if I had a good harvest today and my father passed away last year, I would thank my father for his blessing that led to my good harvest today. I would thank my grandfather, thank my great-grandfather. During the process of worship, you have a lot to pour out, and gradually your sense of gratitude grows stronger and your harvests become more abundant. Then you start to hope that you can offer sacrifices to more people. So you go from worshipping your own ancestors to including distant relatives and then gradually extend it to your neighbors. In this kind of process, you pay respects to heaven and earth and to the local deities. After that, you begin to offer sacrifices to all kinds of wandering spirits. This concept has always existed. It has always existed. After Buddhism was introduced here, it brought in the concept of reincarnation and also introduced Buddhist mythological stories. So after it was introduced, it started to connect with the Ghost Festival and the story of Mulian and his mother. Everyone knows the story of Mulian and his mother, right? Little Mulian's mother was very pitiful. She had nothing to eat, and whenever she tried to eat, fire would spew out of her mouth. So Mulian had to recite scriptures and chant mantras to help his mother get food so she wouldn't suffer so much. After the two stories merged together, but think about it, why would such a concept exist in Indian Buddhism? Actually, what they mean is that when everyone has a successful and plentiful harvest, they need to share what they have with others and give to others. It's really the same concept. India is also a vast and diverse nation, so after they combined this idea with Buddhism, it turned into an act of giving. And after the myths from both sides merged, it started a tradition that lasted for 1,000 years, everyone making offerings and worshipping properly in the 7th month. With constant promotion and repeated reminders about the importance of worshipping properly, something interesting happened. In religion, there's often this mindset. I advise you to do this, but I'm afraid you won't actually do it. So what do you do when you advise someone to do something, but are afraid they won't? Well, you try to scare them into doing it. And it's not just us who do this. Christians do it too. If you don't listen to Jesus, you'll go to hell. And not just any hell, but purgatory, where you'll be burned by fire and so on. In religion, we're used to using scare tactics to get people to obey, because honestly, a lot of people just don't listen. So, for the sake of spreading the faith and achieving their goals, they'll tell you that if you don't do as told, you'll suffer some kind of retribution. If you don't do this, something bad will happen to you. That's why we often see those lay sisters, right? As soon as they see you, they say, oh, you need to cultivate yourself. You need to do this or that. But what exactly are we supposed to be fixing? I often wonder, is it the plumbing in our house that's broken? Or is it the lights that need fixing? Since we're always being told to fix this and that. This is something we often talk about in class. The reason I'm here today from a Buddhist perspective is that since we haven't attained arhatship yet, we're still caught in the cycle of the 6 realms of rebirth. I'm here to cultivate my mind, otherwise I wouldn't even be here. But a lot of people use this kind of religious attitude to intimidate you, telling you what you can and cannot do, and what will happen if you don't follow these rules. You'll notice that in religion and fate-related teachings, there are often many arguments like this. Then they try to scare you. Of course, their intentions might be good, but in order to meet their KPIs or performance targets, they start to intimidate you. For example, they scare children into worshipping at temples when the kids don't want to go. If the husband doesn't want to attend a religious ceremony, what do? They go home and scare him. If you don't worship, if you don't attend the ceremony, something bad will happen to you. Then he gets dragged along. After he's brought there with so many people present and donations being made, he says, I brought my whole family. Isn't that meeting the KPI? So, as this kind of result gradually takes shape, it eventually becomes a habit. It's as if not worshipping at this particular time is very dangerous. If you don't pay respects to the good brothers at this time, you'll be in a lot of trouble. This has already been recognized in psychology and hypnosis. People have a herd mentality. When everyone is doing something, you feel that not doing it yourself seems unreasonable. And this sense of unreasonableness often plants a seed in your mind. That seed will go on to help you explain and relate to things that happen to you later. In any case, throughout the entire 7th month, even though we keep saying this, everyone still feels that it's very dangerous. We're often asked about this by customers as well. All right, recently, I've been asked by clients again, teacher, I'm planning to buy a house soon. Is the 7th month not a good time? Or, teacher, I'm getting married soon. Is the 7th month not a good time for that? But actually, when you look into the historical reasons behind this, you'll find that these things have nothing to do with the 7th month at all. In fact, the 7th month should actually be a month of gratitude and joy. Of course, we hope that as we continue to spread this message, one day everyone will understand. In Taiwan, in recent years, people's fear of the 7th month has gradually lessened, slowly decreasing. But deep down, there's still a bit of worry, a lingering concern. And here's something interesting. North of the Yangtze River, they only celebrate the Zhongyuan festival for one day. And for us, the Zhongyuan festival lasts the whole month. It's the entire ghost month. As for the Yangtze region, if there's a chance, I'll explain it to everyone, because this actually has to do with changes in religious practices. In our previous episode, we talked about discussing the development of divination techniques, and that received a great response. In fact, the development of these practices is deeply intertwined with the evolution of religion. If we get the chance, we'll take a closer look at this, but it might take more than one episode to cover everything. I'll probably need to talk about it over several episodes. If everyone supports it, I'll talk to you all about these religious changes and also about how divination practices have evolved here. From this, we can see, since that's the case, right? But many people still feel like, for example, last year I forgot to make offerings, and I had especially bad luck. Last year during Ghost Month, everyone told me not to move, but I moved anyway. I even went to my boss about the house. Is it possible for things like this to happen? Of course it's possible. But let's look at it from another perspective. Think about it. Do foreigners observe Ghost Month? No, right? So does that mean Americans have especially bad luck throughout July? Is that the case? Did the stock market crash or something? Or say, if their stock market really did crash, or that Africans have particularly bad luck in July, does that happen? It doesn't, right? This is something we often see and need to talk about. A lot of people also say, don't eat beef. Eating beef will bring you lots and lots of bad luck, right? Come on, if eating beef really brought bad luck, why hasn't America collapsed yet? And why isn't India ruling the world or even the universe? Right? In India, it's not just that they don't eat beef. If they see a cow nearby, they'll even step aside for it. But in America, people eat beef every day, seriously and enthusiastically. And I haven't seen the country collapse, have you? So, as we often say about fate and religion, to some extent, you have to look at these things with scientific logic. Only then can you really understand whether what's being said makes sense, whether it's even possible. So, even though we've talked about this so many times, we still need to seriously analyze it with everyone. Generally, people start to worry after July, concerned that something might happen. And yes, sometimes things really do go wrong, but sometimes nothing happens at all. So what's really behind these beliefs? We've put together 5 of the most commonly mentioned things for everyone. First, you're not supposed to move or start construction during the 7th lunar month. If you move or start construction, all sorts of problems are said to occur. Here, first of all, we need to discuss a perspective with everyone. Is choosing an auspicious date really important? Is picking a date that matches your own characteristics really important? The method of selecting dates, or date selection, actually comes from the very ancient period of the 7 true stars, which is the predecessor of the Zodiac calendar, one of the earliest systems in China. The original astrology you see nowadays, the method of date selection using the Dumal system, is no longer true astrology. It uses virtual stars, meaning those stars are not real celestial bodies, but rather symbolic representations. These stars are used as symbols to stand in for something else. Well, this has already become a widely accepted convention. True astrology does exist, and it's called the 7 planets and 4 nodes. The origin of this astrology actually comes from Indian astrology. By using this 7 planets and 4 nodes system, we can make corresponding analyses. Of course, modern astrology also has similar theories. For example, at a certain point in time, based on how the planets move and how the celestial phenomena change, since astrology is all about these cycles, there are established patterns. Because these cycles are fixed, they produce certain changes, which is why we are able to create perpetual calendars. By following these changes, we can predict, for example, where Jupiter will be in the coming years, or what position Cancer will occupy, and what might possibly happen. This entire system is called the electional system, and when it was introduced to China, it became known as the 7 conflicts and 4 regions. By using this system, we can create a fixed chart or table. There are still fixed tables that tell us what times are suitable for what and what might happen at certain times. So where did this come from? This comes from the fact that the ancients spent a long time collecting statistics on these matters, and they discovered, hey, there's a certain pattern or phenomenon that keeps recurring. As a result, in a certain year, the emperor suddenly died, or say when Mars suddenly moved to a particular position, something unexpected happened that year. Over more than 1,000 years, the main system of astrology was developed. It took at least a millennium to complete. In our own country, it appeared as early as before the spring and autumn period, and in India, of course, it was even earlier, because Indian civilization predates ours. So, astrology. The earliest recorded history of astrology dates back more than 4,000 years, but it was actually fully developed 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. During those 2,000 to 3,000 years, over such a long period, various astronomers kept records. After documenting these things, they began to wonder, if a comet fell last time and something happened, what would happen this time if a comet fell again? They kept recording and discovered, hey, something really did happen. They organized all this information. After organizing it, we came to understand, oh, so when Jupiter moves to a certain position, when Mars moves to a certain position, when Saturn moves to a certain position, what happens then? What will happen? In the end, they compiled all of this into a book, and then we would know when the next time comes what to expect. When this heart moves to this point, what should happen? So in astrology, when a certain star reaches a certain position, it actually represents something. It's called time. When a cycle of time repeats, there will inevitably be certain changes in society. In China, this is called the 3 cycles and 9 periods. At a certain point in time, something will definitely happen. It's like how we harvest in summer and wrap things up in winter. So, can I predict that when winter comes, your household's food will decrease? Will you go out to eat in winter? In reality, what about these times? The impact on us is simply that changes in time bring about changes in our daily lives and society, not because we need to precisely calculate that moment in time. That's not the case, so we shouldn't even talk about ancient times. Even up until the Qing dynasty in China, we couldn't even write a perpetual calendar ourselves. You can imagine that the theories they came up with for choosing auspicious days or avoiding inauspicious ones were likely distorted because they simply couldn't calculate the dates accurately. So coming back to the topic, when people say you can't move house in the 7th month, why can't you move in the 7th month? First, think about what you're doing in the 7th month. In the 7th month, it's harvest time. Even if we're not in an agricultural society now, what do you do in the 7th month? In the 7th month, it's just about the time for this year's the start of the 3rd quarter, right? The start of the 3rd quarter of the fiscal year. What would you be doing at this time? Usually you'd be very busy during this period. In Taiwan, every summer is the peak season for industries. Everyone in Taiwan knows that every March and April in the Gregorian calendar, which is the first and second month in the lunar calendar, are considered the off-season for industries. March and April are the slow season, while July and August are the peak season. So, July and August are the busiest times for business, and if you move house during this busy period, isn't it not really suitable? That's the second point. When the industry is booming, doesn't everyone feel like, hey, my business is doing great right now, why would I want to give up my shop? When the industry is doing well, no one wants to put their shop up for rent or sale, right? So prices tend to be higher. So if you try to move and look for a place during this time, it's basically not easy to find the place you want. It's really not easy to move when you're already so busy. So the main reason why July isn't suitable is because July is really the time when you should be focusing on your business. What else? Also, July is really hot. When the weather is hot, the key to moving or doing these things is to make sure everything goes smoothly. In July, when everyone is feeling irritable from the heat, isn't it easy to get into arguments with the movers? Isn't it easy to feel like nothing is going right because you just can't stay calm and handle things properly? That's another reason why July isn't a good time to move. It's not about that so-called heavy yin energy. How could there be heavy yin energy when the sun is so strong? In fact, July is the month with the least yin energy. But if we have time, we can talk about why that is. For some people who are sensitive to yin and yang, they do see a lot of ghosts wandering around in July. And actually, there are reasons behind that. So if we have time, we can explain this further. What else is there? People say you shouldn't get married in July. Now, I'm not saying you absolutely can't get married in July, or warning you that if you celebrate Qixi Festival, you'll become a parent by next year. Of course, the ancients didn't have this problem, because back then, people could only spend Qixi Festival with their wives. But in that closed society, if you dared to have a secret romance 70 years ago, or dared to push a girl down, or if a girl let you push her down, wow, in the Ming and Qing dynasties, that was not considered a good thing at all. Let's think back on that. If Valentine's Day falls on such a romantic day as Qixi, then why can't people get married on Qixi? So, this idea mainly comes from the belief that the 7th lunar month is considered inauspicious, so getting married during this time is not ideal. That's why people think it's not a good time for wedding. So, from this, we can see that when it comes to marriage, what really matters is whether the two people have compatible personalities and whether they are suitable for each other. How could it be that just because the timing isn't right, the marriage itself would be wrong? If that's the case, then we should just focus on picking a good date. You know, in Chinese communities, I've come to realize it's not just in Taiwan. Since we have many students and we've asked around across the entire Chinese community, at least half of couples get divorced within 10 years of marriage. As for the other half who don't get divorced, well, there are still plenty of issues among them too. There are also many whose relationships aren't going well or who are in the process of discussing divorce. When you think about such a huge problem with marriage, most people still choose to pick an auspicious date when they get married. Even if you don't consult a fortune teller, at the very least, you'll check the Farmer's Almanac to pick a date, right? Yes, everyone does it this way, so why is the divorce rate still so high? It's like everyone is taking the same brand of male enhancement pills, but 80% of men are still impotent. So what does that mean? It means that the medicine doesn't work, right? So why do you still believe in this kind of reasoning? From this, we can see that the idea of not getting married in the 7th month, first of all, the real key to marriage is whether the two people are compatible, and it has nothing to do with timing. The second key point is, don't treat the 7th month as some kind of terrifying month. Otherwise, do you really think you're marrying a ghost or having a ghost marriage? Of course, that's not the case. And then some fortune-telling theories will say things like, if you get married in the 7th month, will it clash with bad luck? Will your happy occasion be ruined by evil spirits? When you hear arguments like this, since we don't believe the 7th month is a scary month, these arguments still go back to what we discussed at the very beginning. Traditional religions and fortune-telling, they like to use scare tactics in their marketing. If they don't scare you, how are they going to make money? But here, we have plenty of cases where people get married in the 7th month or start a business in the 7th month, and they do just fine. There's absolutely no problem. Then there's the idea that you can't buy a house or sign contracts in the 7th month. Can't buy a house, can't sign contracts. Of course, the issue still comes down to whether you personally think the 7th month is unlucky. If you believe it's unlucky, then of course it's not suitable for you to do these things. But I think the main point is still this. If you're in an anxious and restless state, of course you won't be able to make good decisions. And as for what I just mentioned about the 7th month, well, you know what? Because traditionally, people are still worried about these issues during the 7th month. It actually means you can often snag houses or cars at lower prices during this time. The same goes for used cars. Next, there's the saying that you shouldn't go out at night. But let me tell you, if you have a wife at home, you can't go out at night anyway. That's right, you don't even need to wait for the 7th month. It's not allowed all year because your wife will get angry. I guarantee your wife is scarier than the good brothers of the 7th month. Even the cameraman is nodding. Theoretically, the 7th month is filled with heavy yin energy, supposedly 4 times as much, so you should avoid going out at night. But is it really like that? In reality, people who have yin-yang eyes often say, oh, during the 7th month, I really see a lot of those good brothers. Is that more like it? Yeah, that's more like it. Yes, it's just a custom. We believe in the existence of spirits, and in our region, when the 7th month comes, every household comes out to have a party. If you were a spirit, wouldn't you also say during the 7th month, hey, this is the time for the annual party, we're here to have some fun? It's just like how Halloween is a fixed time for parties abroad, so of course, we join in too. At this time, of course, there are more people around. So when there are more people, is it possible that you might run into some bad luck or something like that? Honestly, I can't tell you that it's impossible, because from the perspective of a natal chart, there really are people whose constitution makes them more susceptible to being affected by spirits. If they still go out at night during this time, there is indeed some danger. After all, during the 7th month, everyone comes out to have fun, so there are more people, and the chances are a bit higher. But then again, if you maintain a kind heart, then spirits won't just come and bother you for no reason. From another perspective, as we just mentioned, you have to have this trait in your natal chart to begin with, otherwise you wouldn't encounter such things. On the other hand, if you do have this trait, do you have to wait until the 7th month? Not at all. As long as there are spirits in a certain place, you'll encounter them, regardless of the month. So if you're very cautious and think, I have this trait, it's like saying, I'm prone to catching cold, so I shouldn't go to the North Pole. If you really are that worried, of course you can take precautions, but it's not something that happens to everyone. Not everyone will encounter this. Lastly, there's the idea that you shouldn't wear red clothes. Honestly, I don't really understand why. Traditionally, it's said that wearing red brings good fortune and might attract the attention of spirits. But do you really think spirits are like bulls? Do you think they'll charge at you just because they see red? We now know that bulls actually don't charge because they see red. It's because bulls are colorblind, so it's the movement of the cloth that makes them charge. If you wave a blue cloth, they'll charge too. So this whole idea just isn't true. There's really nothing to it. In fact, red is just a very vibrant color, any vibrant color, really. So there's actually no such problem. All these things, as always, mostly come from religious traditions that use fear as a form of control or consumption. So there's really no such issue. So if you look at the history of the ghost month and why the so-called ghost month economy supposedly has these problems, you'll realize that honestly, there's really no such thing as a ghost month economy at all. Sometimes we even suggest to people that if you want to buy a car or a house, Ghost Month is actually a good time to get a bargain. After all, look at foreigners. They don't observe Ghost Month and they don't have more car accidents or unusual incidents during this time. If you really want to talk about it, it all comes back to people's mindset during the 7th lunar month. When the weather is hot, people tend to get irritable. When you're irritable, it's easy to make the wrong decisions. And when you make the wrong decisions, you might feel unlucky, and then you blame it on the 7th lunar month. In reality, it's just because you were impatient or in a bad mood and ended up in conflict with others or made a bad choice. But instead of facing up to it, who do you blame? People once blamed misfortune on the good brothers from the underworld. But if so, shouldn't we thank them more? With the 7th lunar month coming, everyone should pay respects. Worship shows gratitude to heaven and earth and grows a thankful heart. All right? I also don't think there's any reason not to perform the rituals. If you should, then go ahead, but there's no need to be afraid. As for the ghost month, is there anything you're actually afraid of? Have you encountered any real-life cases, or perhaps you don't believe in ghost month at all and are living just fine? Feel free to leave your comments below. Let us know if you truly aren't afraid of ghost month, or if you've experienced anything unusual during this time. Maybe it's actually related to your birth chart. You can also share your birth chart with us so we can see if it's connected to your destiny. On our official Line account, we will also provide some materials to help you understand how to read your chart and see what situations you might encounter during this month. We offer many learning courses, so you're welcome to join our official Line. You're also welcome to join our channel's membership courses. In these courses, we will explain even more details to everyone. Thank you all.